Welcome to the two books that Joseph Smith may have used to write the Book of Abraham video. We will compare the Book of Abraham by Joseph Smith, which was written in 1835, to the Six Books of Proclus on the Theology of Plato by Thomas Taylor, which came out in 1816, and The Philosophy of a Future State by Thomas Dick, 1831. So we'll compare the Book of Abraham to those two books. So the first book we're going to go through is the Six Books of Proclus on the Theology of Plato, and here is the title page. Okay, so the first thing in Proclus' book that we're going to go through is planets being called governors or governing planets. So he says, but the planets are called the governors of the world and are allotted a total power. So governing planets can be taken from that. And then the book of Abraham, chapter 3, verse 3, and the Lord said unto me, these are the governing ones, and the name of the great one is Kolob, and that's a planet, so it's a governing planet of Kolob. Because it is near unto me, for I am the Lord thy God, I have set this one to govern all those which belong to the same order. Okay, so governing planets. Then the other one is from facsimile 2, figure 5, in the book of Abraham, is called in Egyptian Anish Goan Dash. This is one of the governing planets also, so the same kind of theme there, and is said by the Egyptians to be the sun, and to borrow its light from Kolob, which was another one of the governing planets, through the medium of Kai Van Rash, which is the grand key, or in other words, the governing power. So he uses these terms, governing planets. I'm not sure how great this looks as far as Joseph stealing it out of the Proclus. And we have three passages here out of the book Proclus. He's talking about the fixed stars and the planets, or just fixed stars. The first one here, it says the order of the celestial gods, then consisting of fixed stars and the planets. Okay, so the fixed stars and the planets. The next one, hence the doubt may be solved, why the one sphere of the fixed stars comprehends a multitude of stars. So again, fixed stars. And then the last one, these allotets, according to the Platonic philosophy, have so far as they are wholes a perpetual subsistence and are the spheres of the fixed stars, the spheres of the planets. So you can read the rest of those and kind of study these, and we'll see how they compare to the Book of Abraham. Okay, these are from facsimile 2, figure 5. And this is in the Book of Abraham. It says, which governs 15 other fixed planets or stars. So it uses the same language. Whether he got that out of the Proclus, I don't know. It could be a coincidence. He could have got it from another book. I think this idea of fixed planets or stars was kind of floating around in the air. But here in facsimile 2, it says, which governs 15 other fixed planets or stars. And then also, and to borrow its light from Kolob through the medium of Kai Van Rash, which is the grand key, or in other words, the governing power, which governs 15 other fixed planets or stars. So whether he stole that out of the Proclus, I don't know. Okay, then we have the words grand keys in the Proclus. The first one here says, this theory too is one of the grand keys. This theory too is one of the grand keys to the theology of the Greeks, as it shows why one God is so often celebrated, blah, blah, blah. And then on facsimile 2, figure 5, it says, and to borrow its light from Kolob through the medium of Kai Van Rash, which is the grand key, or in other words, the governing power. So he uses the same words, grand key. And then the last one here, facsimile 2, figure 7, represents God sitting upon his throne, revealing through the heavens the grand key, or the grand key words of the priesthood. So I don't know if he stole those out of the Proclus. It could just be a coincidence. Okay, we now have from the Proclus the Demiurgus, the creator god, giving of its own essence to power the sun, giving subsistence from his own essence to the sun. So let's read this. Hence Plato does not here fabricate the solar light, which is the sun, but says that the Demiurgus, which is the creator god, enkindled it, as giving subsistence from his own essence to this sphere. So subsistence from God, kind of to power the sun, you could interpret that. And emitting from the solar fountain a life extended into interval and continually renewed, kind of through the power of the creator God, Demiurgus. And then we have something similar in facsimile 2, figure 5, said by the Egyptians to be the sun, so there's the sun, and to borrow its light from Kolob, which is kind of the center of the universe in Mormon astronomy. It's the nearest to God, so you could kind of compare Kolob to the Demiurgus or the creator God, and the sun borrowing its light or borrowing its power from Kolob. Facsimile 2, figure 5. And now this one out of the Proclus, the idea of many gods or polytheism. Says there is one God, the King and Father of all things, and many gods, sons of God, ruling together with him. So there's many gods, kind of like a council of gods. And then in the book of Abraham 4:1, and they went down at the beginning, and they, that is the gods, organized and formed the heavens and the earth. So both have the idea of many gods, this polytheism. Whether he got that out of the Proclus, I don't know. The evidence doesn't seem to be too strong to me. And now we have the idea out of the Proclus of intellects being eternal, unborn, and always existing. And this same idea can be found in the book of Abraham. Let's read the first one here out of the Proclus. For intellects subsist in unproceeding union with the divine intellect and are entirely unbegotten. So unborn, have always existed. You could interpret that. Then the next one out of the Proclus. But intellects which ride, as it were, in the souls as in a vehicle cannot be called the works of the Father. So in other words, he didn't create them. For they were not generated, not created, just have always existed, these intellects. And then in the book of Abraham 3:18, we have, howbeit that he made the greater star, as also if there be two spirits, and one shall be more intelligent than the other, yet these two spirits, notwithstanding one is more intelligent than the other, have no beginning. They existed before, they shall have no end. They shall exist after, for they are nolum or eternal. So these intelligences or these spirits are eternal. We're not born. So it's kind of the same idea out of the Proclus. Okay, the next idea out of the Proclus is the idea of men becoming gods, which is called theosis. First passage here out of the Proclus says, if these intellects participate of life through me, that's God, participate of life through me, God, they will become the equals of the gods, so they can become a god. And there is a similar idea in the book of Abraham, but it's not specifically said that you can become a god, but in D&C 132 it does say that, so I use D&C 132 instead. It says, then shall they be gods, because they have no end. Therefore shall they be from everlasting to everlasting, because they continue. Then shall they be above all, because all things are subject unto them. Then shall they be gods, because they have all power, and the angels are subject unto them. Okay, the next idea out of the Proclus is the idea of the council of the gods. It says, but Jove, who is the god of the sky, to Themis, who is the goddess of order, gives command to call the gods to council. So a council of the gods in the Proclus. In the book of Abraham 4:1, it says, and then the Lord said, let us go down. And they went down at the beginning, and they, that is the gods, organized. So maybe kind of had a meeting, a council of the gods. That is the gods organized and formed the heavens and the earth. So there's kind of the idea of the council of gods in both. Okay, then out of the Proclus we have calculating time among universal bodies. In other words, figuring out what time it is on certain planets, whether it's the sun, the moon, etc. I'll let you go through and read this. He does talk about it a little bit, but it's not that similar to the book of Abraham. So here's the similar idea in the book of Abraham, chapter 3, 4 through 10, calculating time among universal bodies, figuring out what time it is on Kolob, where God lives. Time is calculated different there, it's calculated different on different planets. So you can read through this. It's not really that similar, other than just the idea of it, to the Proclus. Let's get to the next book here. We will be comparing the Book of Abraham by Joseph Smith, which came out in 1835, to Philosophy of a Future State by Thomas Dick, which came out in 1831. So comparing the two, see if Joseph Smith took anything. Okay, the first thing at a future state is the idea of eternal progression, the progressive order of intelligences. And it says, as finite intelligences from their very nature are progressive beings, so these intelligences are progressive beings, and therefore cannot be supposed to acquire all the treasures of wisdom and knowledge, and to comprehend all the multifarious displays of divine perfection during the first stages of their existence. So maybe they'll have to go through more stages. There may be an admirable diversity of modes corresponding to the peculiar circumstances and stages of improvement. So stages of improvement by which the Creator may gradually unfold. So gradually unfold the idea of eternal progression to them, the glory of his nature, and enable them to take a more extensive survey of the magnitude and order of his dominions. Okay, and then there's the similar idea in the Book of Abraham, chapter 3, the progressive order of intelligences, one being smarter than another, having more intelligence, so further ahead, you could interpret that. It says, howbeit that he made the greater star, as also if there be two spirits, and one shall be more intelligent than another, so different progressive orders. Yet these two spirits, notwithstanding one is more intelligent than another, have no beginning, they existed before, they shall have no end, they shall exist after, for they are nolum or eternal. And the Lord said unto me, these two facts do exist, that there are two spirits, one being more intelligent than another. So further ahead you could say, there shall be another one more intelligent than they, so even further ahead than those. And then I am the Lord thy God, I am more intelligent than they all. And then there's the idea that you can become a god and become equal to God eventually. Okay, also in future state we have the idea that matter or intelligences are eternal and cannot be destroyed. The first one here in the future state is no particle of matter is ever lost or reduced to nothing. It is in the highest degree improbable that the thinking principle in man will be destroyed. The thinking principle in man will be destroyed. That's very improbable. By the change which takes place at the moment of his dissolution, so I guess death. Next one in a future state is, it appears not only improbable, but even absurd in the highest degree to suppose that the spark of intelligence in man will ever be extinguished. Okay, so improbable, even absurd to suppose that the spark of intelligence in man will ever be extinguished. So in other words, it's eternal. And we definitely have this same idea in the Book of Abraham, chapter 3. It says, yet these two spirits, or you could say intelligences, notwithstanding one is more intelligent than another, have no beginning, they existed before, they shall have no end, they shall exist after, for they are nolum or eternal. And we've already gone over that. So those ideas are very similar, but they could just be in the air, they could be in other books. The future state may not be the only place where these ideas exist. And now we have the idea of the center of the universe. They used to think that the earth was the center. Now we know that the sun is the center of our solar system. But what is the center of the universe? So this was an idea that came up in the future state. It said, if there be a reference to the splendor and magnitude of a particular portion of creation, there is an astronomical idea which may help us to form some conception of this, quote, glorious high throne, unquote, which is the peculiar residence of the eternal. So there's this glorious high throne, and it's the peculiar residence of the eternal, or you could say God. It is now considered by astronomers as highly probable, if not certain, not really, but from late observations from the nature of gravitation and other circumstances, that all the systems of the universe revolve around one common center. So the center of the universe which they call the glorious high throne, the residence of the eternal. And then in the Book of Abraham, there's a similar idea. Facsimile 2, figure 1 says, Kolob, signifying the first creation, nearest to the celestial or the residence of God. And then we know that other stars are in diminishing order to Kolob and were placed around Kolob. So Kolob was kind of the center, nearest to the celestial or the residence of God. It's a very similar idea to what's in the future state here. And the Egyptian notebook by Joseph Smith described Olablish, Anish Goandash, and Kai Ivanrash as central governing stars. So again, central governing stars, as well as a place for the center of light, where the 15 fixed stars center. So that's also near unto Kolob, and Kolob is the center. So these are similar ideas. There is another similar idea in the future state to the degrees of glory talked about in the Doctrine and Covenants and elsewhere in the church. He's just mentioning that the Japanese believe that the souls of men and beasts are alike immortal, that a just distribution of rewards and punishments takes place after death, that there are different degrees of happiness, he calls it, after death, as well as of punishment. So different degrees. And then, of course, in D&C we know that Joseph Smith came up with the celestial glory, the terrestrial glory, and the telestial glory for the 3 degrees of glory. But this idea was floating around, and it was in the future state. And I guess the Japanese had it before that. Okay, did Joseph Smith use these 2 books to write the Book of Abraham or come up with other ideas for Mormonism? Surprisingly, I don't think the evidence is that strong. There's no long passages taken out of these 2 books. Both of the books are fairly long, and they could be just coincidences that they were mentioning the same ideas or the same words. The ideas could be floating around in the air. They could be in other books. So if there was like a nice long passage, and even 2 or 3 passages like that where he was just kind of copying line upon line and showing major plagiarism, I would say the evidence would be stronger. But from what I have looked at, it's not that strong. Okay, here is a picture of facsimile 1. It's filled in correctly, I suppose. It's got the jackal head for Anubis. It's got the bird above Hor. I guess that is the Ba bird representing spirit. And then it's got a head drawn on the other bird. I suppose that's the right head. Not totally sure. But I kind of like this picture. It just gives you the idea that Joseph Smith put in the wrong heads and the wrong characters for the missing part of facsimile 1. But that will do it for this video, and I thank you for watching the 2 books that Joseph Smith may have used to write the Book of Abraham video.